Hello and welcome to a 12 volt electrical video. Today I'm going to be wiring up this 12 volt socket and taking the power from this 12 volt socket. You may recall in my video titled Fully Serviced Pictures Electric and TV Hookup that I installed this so I could hook the TV up to the external bollard. This is what I've purchased. It's a pre-wired 12 volt socket. Comes with TV point. The reason I've purchased this is because I want the back box and the bezel surround for a future project. But I'll be using this wiring lead to connect this socket today. I've also purchased this 12 volt wiring harness, 3 meters long, 2.5 square millimeter wire. It's the genuine wiring harness from the manufacturer of wiring harnesses for caravans and motorhomes. And this particular harness with the white wire and the yellow wire is used for these 12 volt sockets. Auxiliary extension 12 volt harness. You'll notice in your fuse box along the row of 12 volt fuses one labelled auxiliary socket, and that's this one. This is the auxiliary socket fuse, a 10 amp. To isolate the power, I'm going to pull it out, because if I use the 12 volt master switch to isolate the power, I won't have any lighting. First job is to take this cover off. I'll take the 4 screws out. That's the coax cable. And what I'm going to need to do is drill a hole through the worktop. Well, the next job, I'm going to have to gain access from underneath. I'm going to have to take this access cover off. I'm going to drill a 16mm diameter hole with this hole saw. I'm wanting a 16mm diameter hole so that there's enough room for any future wiring. There's the 16mm diameter hole. Made a slight mistake because I was going to drill there and then I changed my mind. It's a shame really, but luckily it's not going to be seen. I'll take these 2 wires off this new socket. So this is the short fly lead. I'm going to get the extension harness, plug it in, and I'm going to use this wiring draw line, thread this down the hole and see if I can grab hold of it from underneath. There are obstacles underneath, so it might be a little bit difficult. Got it. What I'll do is tape the end of the draw line onto the end of my new cable. Tape these terminals so they don't snag. Pull it through. And they're through. Take the tape off. Connect the wiring on now. The yellow is the live and the white is always earth. Now at the back of the socket, the terminals are marked. That one's the live. So I'll put the live on there. That's the live on, and then the earth. As you can see there's lots of room there for additional wiring. That's the module back in place, all screwed in. Just being careful not to over tighten the screws because you could strip the threads because it's only plastic that you're screwing into. Put the cover back on. The next job is to route the wiring harness through to the other side so I can then bring it up to the existing socket to the power source. I'm going to use this draw line again to run the new harness along the same route as the factory wiring. There's the draw line. I'm going to tape the harness onto the end of the draw line. Tape both ends up so it doesn't snag anywhere while I'm pulling it through. Take the tape off the draw line. Thread the wiring through the electrical clips that are already there. Through another clip and then through this hole. I'm going to take the exiting socket off now, so I've got to take the screw caps off. I'll use the trimming knife. What you've got to be careful about here is the very tip of the trimming blade can snap off and hit you in the eye. That's the factory socket. What I'm going to attempt to do now is thread the cable draw line down from here into that lower cupboard. That's through. Thread the draw tape through the hole in the upper shelf and then tape the wiring onto this. And now we'll draw it through. That's the wiring through. Take the tape off. That's my wiring there, this black one. I threaded it through that wire tie without touching it. There was enough room in there to get it through. And then through the other wire tie, through that gap. that's mine, this black one here, through the upper shelf and round the back of this connection box. There again, there was enough room at the back of this tie to thread it through the hole and then up to the socket. The final job is to connect the wire into the existing socket. So I'm going to thread these pieces of heat shrink onto the wires and then connect up these piggyback connectors. Crimp them on with the crimping tool. Then I'm going to cover the exposed terminals with the heat shrink. Now that's given it a professional finish. So I'll take the yellow wire off, which is the positive. Take the earthen wire off. We'll slot the piggyback connectors onto the terminals. That's the extension wiring with the piggyback connectors on, and now we can put the original terminals onto the piggybacks. It's a little bit loose, so we'll just tighten it up a little bit. It's better. Tighten this one up a touch. There you go. So I'll thread this slight bit of excess wiring behind the sockets. Put the screws in. Screws are tight, put the screw caps back on. The job's complete. Put the fuse back in. The cover can go back on now. Put the screw caps on. That's it, and the seating cushions can go back. I'll test the sockets now with this 12-volt phone charger. I'll try the factory socket. Yeah, the green LEDs come on. And I'll try the extension socket. Yeah, green LED on. That's good. So to summarise, I've used the genuine wiring that would be used at the factory for auxiliary sockets because it's the correct colour coding and wire size. I've used piggyback connectors to connect to the existing socket, so that means I've not cut or damaged any original factory wiring. I've used black heat shrink on the piggyback connectors, so that gives it a factory item look. And I've routed the new wiring harness along the run of the original factory wiring. So in the future, if anybody takes these covers off and looks behind, they'll think it's been factory fitted. I hope you found this video interesting, and I'll see you on the next one. More of a factory item, and I've routed the it's the correct colour coding. I've used the original wiring harness with wiring that would be used at the factory because it's the